Hello, I'd like to welcome you again to today's edition of Leading Edge. Now, in the last two editions, we started a conversation around managing transitions. So today we'll continue the third part in that series. Now remember that in the first part, we examined the 5 dynamics of transition. Last week we considered 5 ways to manage transition. Now in it, we covered accept. Change is as normal as breathing in and then out. Number 2 was don't lose you. Practice self-mastery. And number 3 was focus on being and doing your best while you wait for the lift to the next curve on the mountain. And number 4 was leverage your network and create a new community that's beyond yourself. And finally, we looked at there are no peaks in life, only greater heights. So never stop, keep moving. So today, we shall be examining 5 ways to know when to pivot in your business or career. 5 ways to know when to make that move in your career or in your business. Let me start it this way. Now, except you just started life today, every one of us has at one point or another thought of making a change in what we do or where we are. It may be a career change, or a change in business, a change in relationship, a change of an association or a group you belong to. Sometimes that thought or urge to make a change is just a flash based on some immediate circumstances. At other times, it's a pressure that just lingers in your heart. However it comes, making a decision to change where you are or what you do is a serious decision that carries significant implications. So there are certain signs you need to pay attention to. In other words, there are indicators for when to make a move, when to make a change. Indicators for when to pivot in your career, your business, your relationship, or your association. Obviously, some career, business, and relationship changes are not your decision. They are hoisted on you. You get laid off, the business collapses, or you are asked to leave an association. So those ones, you don't have any control over them. When such happens, you then must necessarily find a new door. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson says, every wall has a door. So at such times, you have to find your own door. But most other times, you are left to make the decision to pivot, to make the move. Then you must check the indicators and ascertain if they are sufficient to warrant a move. For example, a time to go or a time to make a move can be a time of loss of meaning and extreme violation of your person, right? It can also be a time of extreme comfort. So there are no easy answers. So it may be something bad, it may be even when things are going good. On the other hand, a time to stay may be a time of discomfort, a time of pain, a time of pressure, but which will help you build character and experience. So you need to stay the course and get to the point of fulfillment. So there are therefore no standard answers or indicators, right? So you need to consider what is peculiar in your own experience. So not every bad time in a career or business is an indication that you should leave or make a change. Sometimes you need to stay and learn. In business, you must learn the power of resilience. In an early episode of this program, I actually did mention that the secret of business is just be there. Just be there. I remember a few months ago, I was with my business mentor, and he told me something in his Igbo dialect. He said, "Mbagata afia na-eme ogbenye." Meaning this, inconsistency in a line of business leads to poverty. All right? So you need to differentiate between consistency and complacency. You know, there's a fine line, and only you can determine that, when you are being complacent in staying and when you are being consistent in staying. So here are 5 ways I suggest you can use to gauge if it's time to pivot, if it is time to go, if it is time to make a change. So let's go through this. So number 1, it is a time to move when you have become too comfortable and familiar with where you are at. Now, there's the concept of the S-curve in management studies, which suggests that we start from a base, as it were, whether in your career, your business, or relationship, you start from a base, and then you move up steadily, or sometimes exponentially, until you get to a point where you plateau or tail out. That's an S. This is what's called the zone of comfort. It's where success becomes routine for you. It is where you are, as it were, on autopilot. Nothing seems to challenge you on your job. Nothing challenges you in the business. You have sort of peaked in that business. Sales have been surging and suddenly levels out. All right? In the business life cycle, you are at the matured stage of your business. So profit appears guaranteed, growth rate is steady but mostly flat. Nothing to stretch for. Nothing. So it's a zone of comfort. This is often where complacency sets in. Things are fairly predictable around you. Now, let me make this important point. If you wake up each day and you can predict your day, then you have stopped growing. Take note of that. You have settled. All right? So in the concept of the S-curve, each time you are nearing the peak of your current role or your business, it is time to start a new loop, a new S-curve. It's time to step out of the zone of comfort to a new learning zone. All right? So each new S-curve comes with discomfort, unpredictability, uncertainty. But that's where you pick new learnings to create the next layer of growth. That's where you launch a new growth path. All right? Now, in your business, it may mean you are creating a new vertical. You are diversifying into a completely new industry or expanding through maybe backward integration or forward integration. It may mean moving into new geographies. No, you need to branch out to other countries or whatever. You are introducing a new brand or new services. All right? It may mean also walking away to chase some fresh passion in your life. All right? Like Dr. Charles Mutai Mule, the social entrepreneur and founder of the Mule Children's Family. Now, this is a Christian NGO based in Kenya. Let me just tell you this. So Dr. Mule was a successful businessman. Suddenly, in 1989, he sold his property and business to dedicate himself to rescuing and raising street children. Now, as of today, over 23,000 kids have been so raised by Dr. Mule. The 2014 movie called Mule documents Dr. Mule's life in raising what's come to be known as the world's largest family. All right? Now, so in your career, it may mean to move into a more expanded role or move to a new geography or move into something different, right? One basic indication, therefore, that it's time to pivot, it is time to move into something else, is when you have become rather too familiar with where you are at, that nothing challenges you anymore. So you do well to give yourself the gift of growth by reinventing yourself, by seeking something challenging to do. Otherwise, life becomes a bore and you become a prisoner of the familiar. All right? So when where you are at doesn't provide any opportunity to learn and grow anymore, it's time to pivot. It's time perhaps to find something else and somewhere else. So one of the greatest lessons I've learned is that the greatest purpose of work is to learn. So when you have stopped learning, then you may need to move to something else. Now this brings me to another point. There are three important questions you must ask yourself regarding your job or business. This helps you gauge whether you are in the right place at this moment. Those questions are, am I learning? Number two, am I adding value? And number three, am I having fun? If you answer any of these questions in the negative, you need to reevaluate yourself and what you are doing. It may indicate that your time is up there. So if you are no longer learning and stretching, it may be a time to move on. Okay, so we look at number two. It is time to move when you no longer find meaning in what you are doing. There's something else that holds greater meaning for you. Now, especially at midlife, for those who are 40 or above, something shifts for you significantly. Life becomes more about meaning and contribution rather than just mere achievements. You find yourself asking, is this all that there is? Isn't there more? Most of the things that used to matter to you suddenly cease to matter. You are suddenly in search of meaning, not more success. This is part of what leads to what's called midlife crisis. Now, Bob Buford wrote what I consider a very great book to navigate this sort of period. It's called Halftime, Moving from Success to Significance. If it's the halftime of your life game, you then need to reappraise what's really at your core, what's in your box, as Bob calls it. You may be looking for significance at this point. So let me show you this. When you send your kids to Harvard, you are successful. But when you send other people's kids to Harvard, you are significant. Think about that. So you may be in a job or business and suddenly you no longer find meaning in it. It's time to pause and reflect. Often at such times, you find that something else is tugging at your heart. There is a pull towards another thing. This is regardless of whether you are 24 or 54. It may be a summons to pivot. The loss and the search for meaning also reflects in another way. If there is something you keep dreaming about exploring, or there is something you greatly miss not exploring, it may be time to make a move. Often it feels exhilarating and frightening at the same time. Okay? A related sign is when the highest point of your week is Friday evening, while the most troubling is Sunday evening, if you understand what I mean. It's when you sometimes consider calling in sick or looking for other excuses to stay away from work. When you have an overpowering, morbid dread for work and a huge relief when you're away from it, then it's a red flag. You are in the wrong place. Okay? And sometimes you feel stuck. Typically, people feel stuck with their work at some point or another. It's not unusual. But when it becomes too consistent, almost malignant, as I would say, then you need to check it. It may be time to go. Now, that sense of being stuck can come from a variety of factors. It may be that there are no prospects of promotion unless your boss leaves his role or you leave yours. It can be that you are in a job that you hate with people that don't value you, but you still need to pay your bills. In a word, you hate the job, but you love the paycheck. Or it may appear that you are out of options because you fear you will be strained or stranded if you leave. It's fear that's keeping you. Now, in a relationship or an association, you are sticking to what's diminishing you for fear of maybe losing validation or fear of what people may say or fear of being stranded. The fact is that the fear that keeps you in a place may actually be keeping you away from your true place. I learned this simple life lesson years ago, that what's good to you may not necessarily be good for you. Right. You may never find true meaning until you have the power to walk away from the most quoted empty niceties, I will call them. The Jewish leader Moses demonstrated that liberating power when he walked away from the privileged identity of being called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, with all its trappings of comfort and power. He chose rather to suffer affliction with the Jewish people. Right? So the power to walk away from the great known to the great unknown is foundational to personal growth and indeed foundational to the progress of the human civilization. If you can no longer find meaning in what you do, be courageous. Walk away. Okay, so let's look at number 3. It is time to walk away when your attitude has become dominantly negative. Now, typically there are ups and downs in every career. It's not unusual to have bad days on your job when things are not going quite well. I'm not sure there is anyone that really enjoys their jobs 100% all the time. Okay? However, when your dominant feeling about your job is negative, when you have persistent feelings of unsatisfaction, of fear, of anxiety, of distrust, then it's time to think of making a change. If you are dominantly unhappy about your job, then you may be unmatched for that job. There's one Chinese proverb I saw years ago. It says, a man without a smiling face should not open a shop. So what's the use of remaining in a job where you're unhappy? In the last episode, I talked about the 3 factors that affect your performance on a job. These were your belief, your feeling, and your commitment. When these have become negative, then it's a red flag. You will need to rethink your continuous stay. Now, toxic dissatisfaction leads to very negative feelings and attitudes. If you now find yourself easily and unusually irritated by little things in the workplace, you now acutely notice the bad behaviors and habits of your colleagues. You are easily on a foul mood all day. Even when you are gone from the office, you carry the thoughts and reflections of the bad things that happen in the office with you. It's time to rethink your stay. I've met people, who don't believe in the organizations they work for. They bandy the negative things about the employer, sometimes even in an interview. You cannot be working for an employer or company you don't believe in. It is self-violation. Can I tell you this? Quit. Sometimes this negative attitude comes as envy. You feel terribly bad at the success of some other colleagues. You begin to seriously compare yourself with others and sometimes even your boss. Cut it. It may be a time to quit. You are becoming toxic. Now, a foul attitude is a strong inhibition to career success and mostly to personal growth and satisfaction. So, if you are no longer giving your best and being your best, change yourself or change your job or business. That's called integrity. If you have become very negative in your attitude towards your organization, take my advice. Your time is up. You seriously need a change. Right. So let's look at number 4. It is time to make that move if the environment has become toxic, abusive, demeaning, sometimes physically and emotionally. Now let me start with this. So sometimes it's not you that are toxic. It's the environment where you are. A toxic environment reflects in different ways. So sometimes it's about a work culture that violates your personal beliefs, violates your faith, violates your standards of morality. Would you choose to lose you to keep a job or business? That's the question you should be asking at such times. It could be a clearly awful boss or partner. So an abusive employer or supervisor or partner chips away at what makes you human. It is a violation. The truth is that a toxic leadership in the workplace affects the quality and output of work. This is why we say that people quit bosses and not companies. A toxic environment can also be one that stifles creativity and capacity. It's a place where you are afraid to voice your opinion, or you are shut down when you do. It's a place that does not value you, that does not bring out the best in you. Often the boss micromanages you. It's a place where snide comments, offensive and abusive words are commonplace. Leaders or managers make derogatory and belittling statements to other people. The list goes on. If you are in such an environment, you need to rethink your stay. You may be dying by installments without knowing. Like they say, the scars you can't see are hardest to heal. Okay, so we go to number 5, and this is the last one. It is time to leave if the job or business is compromising the critical balls of your life. Now, over 10 years ago, I had an experience in my career that changed the way I worked. I came down with what the doctors diagnosed as executive stress. I just suddenly realized that I couldn't breathe properly. My breath will hang, as it were. I'll be in an air-conditioned car and I'll be looking for air. I couldn't sleep in the night. For several weeks, I would wake up in the night. I will know when it's midnight, then I will know when it's 1 a.m., and then I will know when it is 2 a.m. It was terrible. I couldn't wish that experience on anyone. I was on countless antibiotics, but all that helped a little. The doctor friend told me to take steps to just relax. I can't forget a question he asked me. He asked me, do you have the movies by Osofia? Now, Osofia is a Nigerian comedian in some, movies. And obviously, I didn't have any of his movies. I was too serious-minded to do. At least I thought like that at that time. So he made me borrow and watch Osofia in London, Omogwo, and a few others like that. Now, I came through that experience learning one big lesson. And that lesson was, when you break down, everything else breaks with you. Now, a number of us work in very high-stress environments. Work and business are okay, but the question may be, at what cost? What may you be losing, or what could be suffering as a consequence of your job or your business? There is something called the balls of life. Now, these are the critical components of your life. Okay? So typically, there are 5 balls of life. 1 is work. 2 is health. Then family, friends, and your faith. So you need to step back and reappraise things when work begins to affect your family, your faith, your health. You may need to make some tough calls at such times. You need to start by determining what's really important in your life. May I suggest that there may be more to life than the pursuit of wealth and success. Now, when your job begins to compromise your family, your health, your faith, I would suggest it may be a time to pivot. Okay, so let's recap these 5 ways to know that it is time to pivot your career or your business. Number 1, I've covered when you have become too comfortable and familiar with where you are at. Number 2, we say it is when you find no meaning any longer in what you are doing. Okay, so there's something else that's holding greater meaning for you. Number 3, it is when your attitude has become dominantly negative. Then it's time to go. Number 4, it is when the environment has become toxic, abusive, and demeaning. Number 5, it is when the job or business is compromising the critical balls of your life. Good. So let me close with this. As I close, I want to put this caveat. After listening to this, you find you're experiencing these signs. Don't walk to your business premises tomorrow and start shutting down. And don't send in your resignation letter to your manager by tomorrow either. Right. This is regardless of how clear it may have become to you now that you are in the wrong job or the wrong business or that your time is up. Okay? Why do I say so? You cannot make that move until you put something in place. You need a plan before you pivot, before you make that big change. What's my suggestion? Spend some time to think through your unique situation. Seek counsel, and very importantly, pray about it before you arrive at a final decision. Part of that decision is to have a clear plan that dimensions concrete steps and timelines. The lead time to complete the process of making the move may be a couple of weeks or even months away. So don't rush it. Take your time. Ultimately, make the move if you have to. That's the only way that growth and fulfillment can come. You will just be okay. Okay. So that's the end of today's session. And I'd like to thank you for listening to us today. Let me encourage you again, if you are not yet following us on all our various social media handles, please do so today. And if you want to be a member of the Joshua Leadership Project, may I request that you log on to www.joshualeadership.org/membership to be part of what we are doing. Thank you so much again for listening. This has been Leading Edge.